There. Okay. So welcome to the January 28th, 2025 session of TAPR and HamSCI technical session. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week I've been doing some things both with TAPR and with my radios here, keeping everything running. And I can thank Michael Howen for helping me with some adjustments on my RX888 stuff. So thank you. And that's about it for me. Next on the list, we have Scott in 5T&L. Go ahead, Scott. Scott's, I can't hear you. I see a Scott that's unmuted, but okay, well, we'll come back to Scott if he has some comments. But next on the list is Andrew. Any comments, Andrew?
Hi, no comments, nothing to report. Thanks for having me.
Okay. And next on the list is Clint. Go ahead, Clint.
Hi. After spending a week at Quartzsite, I'm here in Tucson at some friend's place, and while the dinner is cooking, and I decided to hang out here for a while, but nothing technical to.
Okay. Well, sounds like you're enjoying yourself. Next on the list is Dave, KD0EAG, and he said he didn't have anything to report. So we'll go over him. And next will be Dave New, N8. Where'd you go? N8SBE. Sorry, Dave.
That's fine. Yeah, nothing really much to report here other than the fact that my daughter essentially came down with COVID this week. We think that she picked it up at the Costco at the counter there where you get prescriptions.
Oh.
So she's standing in line with a bunch of other sick people, I guess.
Yes.
So she's isolated in her bedroom. She's not allowed to come out.
Well, good luck with her.
That's the excitement around our place. But we caught it early enough that they gave her Paxlovid, and so I think she's
Oh, very good.
So yeah. All right. Other than that, nothing else.
Okay.
Yep.
Next on the list is Dave, W6OQ. You're still there.
Yep, I'm here. Here just hanging out, see what I can learn, looking to see where I might be able to be helpful. That's about it, thanks.
Okay, thank you. And next on the list is Dave Julian, WB9YIG. Go ahead.
Good evening, folks. It's been a while since I've been out here. I survived the foot surgery, and hopefully I'll be out of the boot come next week or so. So that's about all. Just getting back in the swing.
Okay. Next on the list would be David McGaw. Go ahead, David.
Good evening, everyone. Well, I actually got on Winter Field Day for a brief moment yesterday. 10 meters was open a number of places. I got 3 contacts. My club did a lot more than that, but they were 3 unique contacts, which was interesting. One of which was a special event station down in Puerto Rico, and a special event station out in the boonies in Oregon. Some guys who pitched tents and run Winter Field Day, and then one from down in Texas. But then, we actually had an interesting call this afternoon talking about Antarctica. As some may know, Nathaniel and others have a new grant to put radios down in Antarctica in various sites. And I've been working with Jim LaBelle for a number of years and have visited down there at South Pole. And Jim's retiring, and we were talking about how we might use the infrastructure to site some of our radios down there, RX-888 type, for the Daisy 2 grant. So exciting things moving along. The only problem is getting it there. We're not allowed to send any actual people for 2 years, and even sending hardware is going to be difficult, but we'll see what we can do. It'd be really nice to get some receivers down that end of the earth. Back to net.
Well, good luck with finding somebody, hopefully find somebody that's going anyway for some other reason.
Yeah, well, the idea is to get hardware together with instructions and ship it down there for their technicians to install it. But we'll be working on that. We have another meeting next week.
Very good. Next on the list is Gary, AF8A. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Not much to report here. Just enjoying above freezing temperatures in Cleveland. That's what we're thankful for this week. So back to net, Dave.
Yes, it has warmed up here as well a little bit. But let's see. Next on the list is Jay Schwartz, WB8 SBI. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. I didn't have anything really to report tonight, but since the statement was just made a couple minutes ago that we're not allowed to send anybody to the South Pole for 2 years, I was hoping that somebody could elaborate on why that is the case. Otherwise, I really have nothing ham radio to report here. So back to net.
Okay, David, do you have any comment on
Well,
why?
there's a real bottleneck with logistics, and we're not exactly clear why. Just that they're not letting anybody go down there for a while.
Is it have to do with the government funding? Kind of thing?
That again, I'm not exactly sure what. I think it certainly has to do with funding. It also has to do with they're just changing things around. Maybe redoing some of the infrastructure down in Antarctica, but it's been really difficult getting anything going that direction.
Yeah.
It's been like a couple of years that way already.
Okay, well, next on the list is Jeremy McLynch.
Hi,
Welcome, Jeremy.
I'm a undergraduate student working with Hyomin Kim at NJIT
Okay,
on one of the Whisper Daemon systems we have, trying to help set it up. So I was joining the meeting to kind of get some more context about how it works and some of the technical details.
well, we have a lot of those. May take more than one session to get up to speed, but hopefully you'll find something interesting here.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Next on the list is Joe, W7LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
Good evening, Dave, and everyone on the video here. The two grapes keep chugging along, sending in data every day. Haven't seen any big flares during our daytime anyway, so things are relatively quiet. And it's going to be kind of quiet around here. I've got about an inch of snow on the ground, and we're expecting another half a dozen or so between now and Thursday. So I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of anything but working on projects inside. Thanks, Dave.
Okay. Next on the list is Jonathan, KC3EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. I've been working on a lot of non-VLF related stuff lately. However, there was some things that I wanted to show in terms of reception, which I'm actually quite happy about here. So what we have, what I'm showing on the screen, this is the information page for my VLF receiver. One of the things that I wanted to point out was the alpha F1 spectrum at around 11.904 hertz. There are 11.904 kilohertz. You could see that alpha F1 is actually coming in, and that I noticed that it tends to happen in the winter months. I'm not sure why, but usually in the winter months, alpha does come in. It's not audible, unfortunately. There were some times, I remember many years ago, it was a Thursday in December. This was like 2013, and alpha was audible through my VLF receiver, my handheld VLF receiver. But I was listening to the stream, and it's not audible. But I just wanted to kind of point that out. Some other really exciting things here is that there have been quite a bit of whistlers. You can see here, these are some powerful whistlers. These are individual whistler events, more than likely from more than likely due to, at least I think so, is we had some weak geomagnetic storming, and it's January, so in the southern hemisphere, it's about mid summer, so so I'm thinking that due to the thunderstorm activity, as well as the geomagnetic activity, weak, but enough to create and enhance Whistler ducts in the magnetosphere. I think that's kind of responsible. And one of the more interesting things is how dynamic our magnetosphere is. You can see the dispersion on the whistlers that were received January 9th and January 8th. And then you could see a difference in dispersion. Mainly we have whistlers that are much more diffuse. You can see on the 17th and the 18th, we have these very diffuse whistlers. And then even on the 22nd, 23rd, and the 24th, pretty diffuse but strong whistlers. And the reason why that I wanted to point this out is because since I installed the VLF receiver, this has kind of been a rarity. But it does make sense because we are approaching or into the peak of solar maximum. So this makes perfect sense. You could see also in this whistler right here, you could see that there's kind of like almost two whistlers that you can make out, and I believe that this would be a multi-hop whistler. But just to kind of show how strong they are, you can see that how well defined they are, and they're definitely about as strong as the weaker spherics. So, and another interesting thing here is that what's the reason for this cutoff right here? I could kind of make out some of the Whistler, but I've always noticed that around this frequency band right here, we can see also, we could see in other Whistlers as well that the Whistler energy seems to cut off around this frequency. This is around 8 or 9 kilohertz. Why that is, I don't know, but that seems to be a feature of almost every Whistler that I've seen, not just from my receiver, but from other receivers as well. So that's an interesting question to ponder, and I'm sure someone knows it, and it's been answered, but I noticed that interesting detail. Other than that, that's all I have. Back to the net.
Jonathan, what
Okay.
was the frequency scale there?
From 0 to 16 kilohertz.
16, thanks.
Okay, next on the list is Michael, AC0G. Go ahead, Mike.
Good evening, everybody. I don't think there's any single thing I've been doing much of. I've just been doing a bunch of separate things. A little bit of Whisper support, a little bit of Whisper Daemon support, fiddling with Glenn's antenna system. I've been assembling the original LZ1AQ with some little copper tubing loops. I haven't got it hooked up yet, but anyway, that's about it for me. Back to net.
Okay. Next on the list is Phil, K9Q. Go ahead, Phil.
Hey, Dave. Okay, let's see. Lots of little miscellaneous things I've been working on K9Q radio over the last couple of weeks. The main features are support for dynamically linked drivers, which includes the SDR play, although that driver needs a little bit of work, attention from Franco K4VZ or somebody who's more familiar with the SDR play than I am. It works for me, but there are some little glitches. There's also support for a device called the Phobos, F-O-B-O-S. I'm not familiar with it, but a quick look at it sounds like it could be interesting. It's another one of these broadband direct conversion front ends. If anybody knows about this thing, please tell me it's what you know. I'm probably going to order one just to play with if it looks as interesting as it seems. Let's see. The other thing I've been working on, major problem that I've been addressing, is the K9Q radios often had trouble running in standalone environments, with no network connected. I've been bit by that myself when I tried to put on demos. I've had some demos fail because of that, or I have to go with a network switch just to keep the interface up. Well, I finally dug into the bowels of multicasting on Linux and figured out how to make all that stuff work. I hope reliably with no network attached. Or not caring, you don't care about the state of the network when you use TTL equals 0, for example. But so please give that a try. And if any problems, any remaining problems with that, please let me know, because I'm trying to harden this stuff. I want to make it, since so many people are using it now for different things, I'm trying to make it robust and get all these little corner cases and glitches and gotchas, each of them nailed down. It's been busy, but I'm sure there's plenty more to do. Anyway, that's it for now.
Fine business. And I do have one of those Phobos SDRs.
Have you tried it?
I have tried I haven't tried it with K9Q. I need to. It's just making a little bit of time to sit down to do it. I have run the libraries that came with it, and I'm very interested in spending some time with that here in the next week or two.
Okay, I updated the instructions on how to build K9Q Radio with Phobos support. As a
Okay,
general rule, I don't want to automatically build things that require to install packages other than just an apt-get install.
correct.
And the Phobos driver apparently is not yet available as a dev package, so you have to do a git pull, make, and install. And I don't want to force people to do that when they don't even have a device just to make your radio work. So that one is optional, along with the SDR play, which has similar problems, although more intractable. However, if anybody has any problems with this or needs help or finds my new directions unclear, please let me know.
Okay, well, I look forward to utilizing that. So
Speaking of new units, I noticed this may have been around for a little bit, but there's a 4-channel red Pitaya. Has anyone worked with that yet?
are you referring to what's it called? I think Michael has a web SDR. No, what's Michael, are you there?
Yeah, but that's not what you're talking about, is it, David? Are you talking about a
No.
real red Pitaya
A
or
real
the
red,
Web
yeah, a
888?
real red Pitaya. That's where they've taken off the 2 DAC channels and put on 2 more A to D
See?
channels.
Oh, okay.
So a 4-channel in. It's a little pricey, about $1,200, I noticed, but might be interesting. I mean, we're hoping to get our system headed that direction. Okay.
Then
Just thought I'd throw it out there. I just noticed that they had it. I don't know how long it's been available. But it's basically the 125-14 put to 4 channels instead of 2 in.
Good. Let's see. Next on the list, we called on Scott. Tom Yarnish, you have any comments?
Hi, KJ6MKI. Nothing to report, just a fly on the wall, but trying to keep up with breaking events. Fortunately, this time of the year, nobody's getting a great deal done, so I'm comfortable with that. That's my speed. But just wanted to see what's going on and try and stay up with events. Back to net.
Okay. And Michael just reminded me to call on Scott again. Scott, can you speak
Can
now?
you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know what happened there, Chromebook. Howdy, everyone. But the only thing I know is that Infineon got back with me today, and now they're saying March on a data sheet in SDK. So rather have no news than bad news. Well, we got bad news. That's it for me.
Well, thanks for keeping up on that. Next on the list is Tom, N5EG. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, good evening, Dave, everyone in the group. It's been an interesting 3 weeks. About 3 weeks ago, I took my Linux server and it dual boots into Windows 11 and Linux, and I did a Windows 11 update. That was a spectacularly bad idea. Windows 11, one of the things it does is decides that Grub2 is not trustworthy, and it installs UEFI keys that lock out booting Grub. There's other bad stuff that goes on as well. And so I've spent 3 weeks trying to get my server back. I've gone through like 25 or 30 things and not able to get it to dual boot. So I bought a new NVMe stick, took out the one with the Windows Linux dual boot, put in a brand new unformatted stick. Cannot install Linux on this brand new stick, even though there's no Windows anywhere on the computer. Finally got that fixed this morning. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. Linux, Windows did some driver updates, and it also reflashed the BIOS quite badly, as it turns out. And so the BIOS was not working. Windows also came up in the fast boot mode. Fast boot causes Windows, when you shut it down, to hibernate the file system rather than shutting it down. It hibernates the EFI partition, meaning that Linux installers are unable to write EFI variables to the EFI partition, causing one not to be able to install Linux. And so from the Lenovo website, I was able to get the tool to reflash the BIOS. I was able to clear out the UFI policies prohibiting grub and delete certain UFI keys and get Windows set up to not use fast boot, which unlocked the EFI partition. And with all of that, I was then able to reinstall grub on the dual boot disk. On the stick that was by itself that wouldn't install Linux, that turned out to be a bug in the Ubuntu 22.04 installer. And by going back to the 22 installer, I was able to install Ubuntu 22 onto this new disk and then go through the update procedure and upgrade 22 to 24. Only way to do it. And so 3 weeks of precisely zero progress on the project, but I have Linux going. I'm leaving the single boot installer in so that I won't be tempted to ever accidentally do a Windows 11 update on that computer ever again. So that's been the last 3 weeks. Back to the group.
Sorry you had to go through all that.
I was going to say one thing to point out, and it is true. If you want to actually restart Windows 11, you have to do a restart, not a shutdown and then power up.
That's actually only part of the problem. There's an option in Windows called fast boot.
Yeah.
And when you do a shutdown or a restart, fast boot keeps the EFI partition locked. Either way, neither approach actually works. So you have to go into power options and disable Windows fast boot. Then when you do a shutdown, it will unlock the EFI partition. That was a painful exercise.
Okay, well, I mean, I had gotten that advice from someone that said that if you're having device driver problems or something like that, the thing to do is to do a restart and not a shutdown and a power up of Windows.
There's a bunch of issues in there. Unfortunately, I think I've been through about 10,000 Google searches in the last 3 weeks.
Well, we're glad that you're back and up and running.
So now I'm reinstalling KA9Q, KA9Q Web, all the libraries, and building it all up from ground zero again. So hopefully it'll be back soon.
And by the way, Tom had a nice additional video. What was it, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, about 4 days before I did the Windows updates, fortunately.
I had problems with Ubuntu in the past. If you wanted to go from one major LTS to another, it would not work. I mean, I had it on a machine, and if you were like running, the previous LTS and you wanted to go to the newest one, it would offer to do the upgrade for you, but when you got done, it would not boot properly. And I found out that Ubuntu has got a lot of problems in that area too.
Yeah, the 22 to 24 update went well, except for one glitch, and that is Thunderbird, which is the email client I never use, but it converted it from a Debian package to a snap install and promptly crashed the installer. But I was able to force that process to abandon, and then the rest of the upgrade proceeded and it worked fine.
Okay. Next on the list, we have Rob Annette. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, good evening, everyone. I've just today, I think I finished my beta ready version of Whisper Daemon that includes all of the support for the float WAV files. So I'm installing it at now at beta sites, and so that's as part of that process. I did experiment once again with the orange pie, and I think we've identified. I think Phil knew this already, but I didn't see it so clearly until recently, that the operating systems available for the Orange Pi, the Linux that we have, and apparently all of them, do not support real-time priority processes. And um, Phil's core radio D threads and the two or more FFT threads. I guess you could have one, but anyway, they all really need to run at real-time priority. And uh, the version of Linux I'm using, Ubuntu 24, I think it is, for this for the Orange Pi, just rejects his calls. And previously, uh, until I think Phil put the patch in yesterday or something. Previously, when it failed to get real-time priority, it just stayed. All those threads stayed at regular priority. So as soon as the CPU got busy, every in 2 minutes of the whisper cycle, um, all these other whisper decoding processes would preempt, get time slices, and so his threads were getting starved. It could improve it pretty significantly, and I think Phil has incorporated that, improve the performance and reduce the amount of audio stuttering, and flashing of the K9Q radio would be reduced by raising the priorities to the highest user level priority. But that isn't enough to really, it still had some flashing when there's 100% CPU. But it's, the half of the or more of solving a problem is diagnosing it. And I think, hopefully, I don't know if there's any Linux operating system experts in this group, but getting a real-time kernel running on the Orange Pi would help our project. It would dramatically reduce the costs and power consumption. Um, and I think that it's entirely now the gating item is a real-time version of Ubuntu, Debian, whatever. I don't really care as long as I can install all of our packages. But a real-time version that ran on the Orange Pi. I mean, that you can buy them for $100. Can't run things at 129 megasamples. You're limited to 64. But in any case, it's I think a very attractive package for the DAISY deployment. I mean, it reduces the power consumption and the cost significantly over using the B-Link, which is I think the current plan of record. The other area we've been working in, I think it's more Michael and Glenn and Elmer. I've been working on the single antenna, and I think we need to talk about of this deployment process. And I think maybe Gary, right now you've recruited people to candidates who want to host these sites, and I think we should have a meeting of our own to talk about the process, how we go about identifying. I don't understand the selection criteria. I imagine what I would do to select sites, but that may not mesh with the other goals of this project. So I think an antenna deployment planning, testing and deployment meeting might be warranted if at some point. And I think that's about all of my stories. I'll send it back to the network of you people.
Okay. And I believe I've called on everybody. Is there anybody I've missed? If not, we're open for general discussion.
Yeah, one thing, real quick, Nathaniel asked me to throw out a reminder that the abstracts are due on February 10th for the upcoming HamSCI workshop in New Jersey on March 14th and 15th. So if there's plenty of interesting topics and a lot of brain power on this group. So anybody who's coming, would be love to have you give a talk or present a poster. Or if you're not able to travel, I know some people cannot. present them virtually as well. That's also an option. So that's it for me for the moment. Anybody's got any questions, obviously, let me know.
Okay. Rob, did you have something?
Oh, I think we had a new attendee, an undergraduate, had questions about Whisper Demon. So if they're still around and
Yes, that would be me. Um, so I've had issues with getting, well, only just recently in the past few days, I've had issues with KA9Q web compiling. I've been getting a few compile errors that I saw some other people on the what's it called?
the
Forum
form.
also
Yeah,
had.
yeah.
Um, and then before that, I was having issues with the, I believe, FT8 and FT4 daemons running or failing to start up. And I'm a computer engineering student, so I'm not too good on the radio terminology and understanding that side. I'm better with working with computer side and electrical engineering stuff. So I'm not really sure if the FT8 and FT4 daemons are required. I tried like disabling them in the configuration file for K9Q, but I don't know if you're supposed to do that or not.
Okay. Well, the which version of yeah, there's been problems with compiling K9Q radio and web over the last couple of weeks. I had foolishly left an internal setting on the Whisper Daemon so that it pulled the main code of dash web, and at one point the web no longer compiled, the library wasn't present, or the other way around, or both of them. They were basically the latest one of Scott's web service wasn't compatible, wouldn't even compile with. And then there was a missing library that it turned out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and unfortunately, if you're running in 3.2.3, you can't recover from these because it doesn't actually shut things down, and it's a mess. So I just it might be there. It's almost, I've been through a few of these. I tried to automate the recovery, but it seems very hard to do, and it's almost easier for me just to log on to your computer if you give you a rack number and I can log into it and kind of clean up the environment.
Mm-hmm.
But what, unless there's some difficulty with doing that, I don't know, the IT policies and such. Um, but if that Whisper Daemon server can talk, can ping Google, then you can enable it and I can log on to it and take care of
Yeah,
it.
I could do that. I haven't actually set it up with our antenna yet because I was trying to get it to work first before, connecting it to the whole system and having it send
That,
signals out. But
yeah.
if you're fine with logging into it and making sure it works, I can get the program set up and
Okay.
connected to our
Yeah.
antenna.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't need an antenna. I just need to have the RX. You're using an RX 888, right? With
Yeah,
on a host computer, and what's your host? What type of host?
it's the one recommended on the HamSCI website,
Oh,
the D-Link PC.
good. Okay. Well, then we'll be in good shape. That'll be easy. Yeah. I'll just. Do you have my direct emails? If you, that's the best way to reach me.
Okay, I
Uh,
should be able to get it from the
Well, let's
HamSCI
hear it.
website.
Well,
Oh,
here, I'll put it in the chat. Okay.
okay.
Um, I mean, there's a number of ways, as with all of us have uh, multiple email accounts, but this is my primary one. And misspelled my own last name. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Go. Yeah, there. Oh, there's a backslash that crept in there. Ignore the
Okay.
backslash. Anyway, send me an email and pretty much all you have to do is turn it on and run a Whisper command if you can. Hopefully you can get that far.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Or we can exchange emails. There's several ways to recover from your state.
All right. Thank you.
You're
I'll
welcome.
send you that email once I have the system set up again.
Okay. Well, whenever. That's
Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in a situation like his where he has no data or anything, he could just copy his Whisper daemon configuration file up one directory, delete the directory, and re-pull the whole thing from GitHub with a fast internet connection and get it running in about 5 minutes.
yeah. I defer to you, Michael. That sounds like a perfectly wonderful plan. I'd much prefer that to.
I mean, I've reinstalled it a bunch of times at this point. I don't have issues with that. I think the configuration, I'm just not knowledgeable enough in the terminology to write it.
Yeah. The config, it does, once you install it, Mr. Daemon does require you to edit, puts up a template file and it requires you to edit it. You can just put a new line in it and and run it again and it'll proceed from there. But you may have other problems. It sounded like you may have compile time problems from a bug that was introduced a couple of weeks ago. So, but yeah, as Michael say, just I've been checking in patches to that mainline version that you're working with over the last few days. So if you haven't pulled a version of Whisper Daemon since last week, then you might do that first. Just it might get you code that will fix itself up. And
Okay. All right. I will try that out. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll point out that KNIQ Web uses some of my internal data structures without me really being aware of, of it. And when I make something internal, and sometimes it causes KNIQ Web to bomb until it's patched to follow the change. For example, I moved some things around within structures inside of my primary channel control block recently, and I think that broke it for a day or two.
Well, it was in a way my fault because previously I had been specifying pairs of commits, your commit and Scott's commit, that were compatible with each other.
It's not really your fault, Rob. I mean, KNIQ Web is peeking into my data structures, right?
Well, yeah,
it's not your fault doing that.
Well,
I mean, I can understand why he's doing it. It's just need better
yeah.
coordination. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you and Scott can sort this out. But in any case,
well, he gave me right access to repository, so hopefully I can catch this kind of thing myself more quickly.
Well, in any case, my solution to this had been just have you, and Scott is now doing this. He specifies in his commits, in his message about his commit, he specifies what version, what commit of yours that his commit works with, and
I think that's a good idea.
That means that once people get my newer code in, that anytime there's that was originally my intention. Anytime they do a get pull, they know that if they're new commits that you code that you and or Scott have put in there, they'll get it, but they'll also know that they've been tested to work together.
Yeah, I've never really liked the whole concept of release cycles. I mean, especially for software that's under continuous development, like this one. Having to say, okay, this is version 1.0, and then the next day you got to come out with 1.01, right? Because there was a serious bug you had to fix. And it's just, development's a continuous process. Just drive a stake into the ground when you find something that works, and then, move up depending on your tolerance for things breaking, pick your own point.
Yeah, branching is really a
well,
mess.
I don't want to branch either. When you branch, you never get back.
Well, if you look at the Whisper Daemon command line now, if you type WDV, all lowercase, you'll get the version number, And I recently added to the inversion number in addition to the traditional in this case 3.1, I do a dash and there's an index number. And that index number is not the commit, it's the index to the commit in Git's table. So you can actually see not only, and that's I find very helpful to me because I can look at somebody's site and log on, type WDV, and I can see if they have an older commit, even though it's on even the same, bugfish patch. I can know exactly which one they're running, and they could tell me what version they're running, and that helps. That's really helpful. So, yeah, I'm very happy with the way the three of us are working together. I know this has been a little disruption over the last couple of weeks, but I don't expect that to happen again. And I think it's pretty amazing that the three of us can work in general harmony and efficiency. So
Yeah, well, it does require coordination. The farther divergent you get, the worse it is.
yeah.
Try to bring them all back together.
Phil, would it make sense to take advantage of the GitHub CI stuff that you've already got running and add K9Q Web to that?
Oh, you mean to do
just build?
Oh, an automatic build to see if something breaks?
Sure. I
Yeah,
think
you
they
want to
can
do
do that
that. I
fairly
mean,
easily.
I keep getting all these messages about some trivial thing bombing out during the build, but I can see their use.
The other thing I did set up a couple of weeks ago, I've got a cloud computer that pulls your latest and my latest every 20 minutes. If it doesn't
20
build, I get an
minutes.
email.
I know I do commits that often sometimes.
Sometimes faster than that.
Particularly at night.
Oh yeah,
It's
I'm
2
a night
a.m.
person.
So I do get an alert if your latest breaks my latest, vice versa. But if I'm at work, obviously I can't just drop everything and go fix it. So
Yeah.
but if you think it's worthwhile, I will look at integrating a K9Q web build into the CI instructions. I think I kind of know how to do it, but I can't make any promises.
Okay. Well, I mean, now that I know that it frequently uses my data structures, I do now that I'm aware of that, I'm going to try to avoid non-compatible changes. I mean, I'm adding things all the time, but that doesn't break a recompilation. It's only when I move something around that does that.
They've all been very trivial to fix, so it's
Yeah, and
not
they
been an
usually are
issue.
trivial to fix once you know what's going on. So let's see, what else have I done? Oh yeah, I wanted to. I don't know who all is working with this stuff now. I don't really know who my users or primary, users are besides Whisper Daemon, AutoRx, and I'm not sure what else, but it would be, I mean, I need to put out queries every so often saying like, okay, I really would like to deprecate this particular command. Is that okay? Is anybody relying on it? Stuff like that. I'm never quite sure if I've like reached everybody. Like for example, I want to get rid of the PCM spawn and PCM cat commands, and because I did a lot of work recently, PCM record, the structure is very different, takes advantage of the receiver status update messages to get the sample rate and the format and all that kind of stuff, and it fixes a kludge that was in there for too long a time where I was overloading the very limited RTP real-time protocol type field to indicate the combination of sample rates and sample formats, and that just wasn't going to work. So I finally redid all this, and since the three functions are really so similar, I'd rather not have to do that work twice more. But I put all those features into one program, which means I'd like to deprecate the old ones because they don't really work anymore. But I'm afraid to do that because I might break something.
Well, I don't use them, so.
Well, you use PCM record, I know that. And I
As
think
I use PCM record, that's what I'm using now.
And I talk frequently with Mark Jess of VK5QI, is the author of AutoRx, who's another user of the package. And so, I can coordinate with him, but I never know who else might be building stuff on this, and I don't want to pull the rug out from under him.
we could switch subjects for a minute. Rob, I think you raised a good point about making sure we understand and coordinate what we need to do to work on the site selection. And I think part of that too is understanding our customer. What do the scientists want? I mean, from my point of view, I've got a very vague understanding. I know we need a magnetometer, a VLF receiver, and an HF receiver. I couldn't even tell you at this point what HF spectrum we're trying to cover. So there's a lot of, I guess I would say, discovery to be done to understand exactly what's wanted from these systems.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know who. I guess you have a number of applicants that are. I assume setting aside the equipment, the first criteria is are they? How do you? What are the criteria for a good, a site worthy of us sending them and spending money, giving them a free setup? I mean, I would think we would want to have a site to be RF quiet, reasonably quiet. And so yeah, I think city volunteers would probably be put down the list. That would be, but that's, again, I'll do whatever people want, but I think that quiet rural sites are going to be prioritized.
You're right. I agree. And that much I heard from the beginning. I agree.
Okay. So, I think the other thing is we've learned is from this process, whatever the antenna, one selects, that these active antennas are extraordinarily sensitive to overload. And it is very easy for them to be overloaded by a local AM broadcast tower or FM transmitters. Our FM transmitters are a real serious problem, can be, for active antennas. And so we would want to include that. As I recall, there used to be a site you could go look and see, okay, put in your address, and it would show you where all the radio stations, what direction they were in, and how far away they were, and so on. And I think that, I was thinking if that hopefully that database still exists, and that might be one element in identifying the best candidate sites. Michael, you're showing us the DX engineering versus the single antenna. Yeah, of course, there's various things. We almost need a training session I mean, I think Michael and I are now fairly familiar with what to look at, but I think that if we have 20 sites out there, and to qualify that, it may be that we need to recruit a few more people to go through how do you chase down problems at a site? I mean, Michael's,
This here
I think,
is
done more
FM
of it.
intermod.
Yeah.
And some of
That,
these big wide humps here are DX engineering has no low pass filter in front of it. And I'm not quite sure what's happening in the amplifier, but these broad humps here, some of which you see at smaller scale on this antenna, but this is all FM intermod for local FM stations.
Yeah,
It's just one.
Yeah, what I found on mine was the FM stations were aliasing about the sample rate, and so you
Exactly.
get those carriers, and so I put a low pass filter in, a commercial one, and it did a pretty good job of getting rid of those.
So where did you put it?
I just put it in between the on the one
You
I
have a
was
DX
doing
engineering antenna?
No, I was not using a DX engine. It was a different antenna.
See, this is an active antenna, and the amp is out at the antenna.
You can't,
And
you can't
so
really, on an
I can't put
E-field
a low
program.
pass filter in front of it.
Yeah, I had an active antenna, and my active antenna was not overloading on the FM stations. It was actually the receiver itself.
Well, That's one thing we don't have to worry about. The 888 really can't overload it and takes care of itself. So
Well, yeah, I had the aliasing problem on the 888. It wasn't overloading. It was actually just aliasing.
yeah, it's not a very good low pass filter. 60 megahertz low pass filter is rather poor inside the 888. Paul Elliott, who I don't think joined us tonight, but Paul is developing a 64 megahertz low pass filter plus LNA with options to switch them in and out. Um, so there will be such a thing available in through Paul or through Tapper, uh, in case you want to, in a way, it helps qualify the antenna system. I mean, we're getting into, the kinds of things that Michael and I are working with is, okay, put the low pass filter in. If you still see those FM intermods, then that intermod is happening out at the antenna. It's not in the it's never going to be in the overloading of the 888. I mean, it's just that you can put a volt into it and it'll just turn down the gain.
Yeah, yeah. In the case I had, it was actually not a nonlinearity in the 888. It was no overload, just strictly aliasing. So my active antenna's got a really beefy amplifier in it, and it's got 1 watt cable TV transistors. It has a hard time.
5109.
Yeah, but whenever the blower motor for the heater turns on, that relay contact will overload. Will overload everything.
Well, we have we've been identifying that, and I'm looking forward to Paul that I think one of the things I from my perspective is it is good to run run the 888 at 129 megasamples because you can see all of this junk that's in the in the 30 to 50 megahertz. If there's junk in there, I mean, there are a few, railroad communications channels and so on at 40 megahertz, but a lot of times you'll see all kinds of stuff in there, as Michael just showed us, that are artifacts of distortions in the transmission chain. So the B-Link has no trouble at 120.29, and the Orange Pi never will run that fast. So I don't think. I don't know. One of the things that we did notice, and Phil, since you're here, is that Uli, our collaborator in Belgium, observed the difference in sharpness between the Kiwi and the 888 in that if there were very strong signals in near a weak signal, that the strong signal would spread out. And I think you understand this very well and addressed it with this filter 2. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Phil?
what I'm calling it. It's experimental, but yes.
And how would I enable that filter 2?
There's a command in control. The capital F command, I believe, takes a number from 0 through 4. 0 means that it's disabled. And then 1 through 4 means the number of 20 millisecond blocks that would be grouped together to run through this filter. And the larger the number of blocks, the larger the block size of the filter, the longer the impulse response of the filter can be, and the sharper the response will be. So it's a trade-off between latency and sharpness, which is fundamental.
Yeah, 420 millisecond samples is, I mean, that's 80 milliseconds of,
I mean, that may
60
start getting
milliseconds
annoying
of,
for people listening to voice or certainly CW.
or
but not for
CW,
your-
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But in our case, I think, I mean, we want to opt for sharpness, and so can I configure it in the Radio D comp file, or is this only?
Let's see, have I put it in there yet? I might have. I can't remember. I don't know if I put it in there or not, but
Okay.
I will certainly.
Okay. Well,
but it's experimental, so I hate to,
I
rip it out and completely change it
it's
around. But
it's hard for me as to have to try to go through the 15 whisper channels and so on. to set them up. So a comp file change is just
No, I understand.
infinitely easier for me to work with
It
to trial.
uses the same bandwidth settings and Kaiser beta factor as the primary filter. It just happens to be, you know, a better approximation of a brick wall.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Well,
not a brick wall, but you know, it's a closer approximation to one because I give it more room.
well, there's hardly a brick wall in filtering, so
Well,
can't.
actually, I mean,
You can
you're
get
you come from audio engineering, right? I mean,
yeah.
there's
Oh yeah.
actually
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
paper I have in my collection. Somebody, audio engineer, said, "Hey, you know, one of the best ones. If you got a CD and want to change the sample rate like an hour of music,
Yeah.
do a single
Yeah.
FFT in the whole thing, and it
Yeah.
works. I mean, you can
Yeah.
do that in a couple of minutes, right? It's entirely
Yeah.
practical, and that will
Yeah.
give you the most razor sharp filter you can possibly imagine.
Well, the
But that's not causal.
yeah, that's in any case, you know, my thought was I would enable the your F4 mode, and on all the whisper channels, say at N3 AGE, where we have we have an antenna feeding two receivers. They're identical in every way. The only difference is the software, your version of software. One
Yeah.
is, or my version of software, which of course means yours to some extent as well. So we can easily, and then we get day-long charts of, I can compare and see, okay, right now I'm comparing in the traditional 16-bit int stream against the
Yeah.
32-bit float stream. They're identical. I mean, they're within measurement error, number
Yeah.
of spots, as one would expect, really.
Yeah.
But that would be a great place to test
Yeah, I mean, as
your
I've explained, I mean, I really have a hard time believing this will make a difference because all these decoders have their own filters, which are much sharper than anything I could provide.
yes.
They're tailored to the signal and they, work on much larger blocks. So I really don't, I mean, it's a worthy experiment, but I
You don't
seriously
really
doubt it'll
don't
make
you
a difference.
wouldn't say you have a minus 20 dBm signal sitting next to a minus 110, got 90 dB and they're a kilohertz
Okay.
apart.
All right. I mean,
So
the filtering can still, I mean, their filtering should still be able to do it and do it better than I can. Now, one place where it does make a difference is if you push the bandwidth limits too close to the sample rate.
yeah.
Because remember what you've got here. You've got this sin x over x response, side lobes, okay? And you want those side lobes in the frequency domain to drop to 0 before you hit the Nyquist rate. If they
Yeah.
go beyond the Nyquist rate, they're going to reflect back.
Yeah.
Which means it's going to alias stuff outside the passband you want back inside the passband. And once it's there, you can't get rid of it no matter how good the filtering is. Okay. That's
Yeah.
why I use a relatively high beta factor for Kaiser. I use a default of 11, which means the side lobes are down about 90 some dB, I believe. You can go even higher if you want. But what that means is that the width of the transition interval on the edge of the main lobe is going to be broader. I mean, that's the fundamental trade-off on filters. You can't have it both. Either you're going to have low side lobes or sharp transitions. You can't have both, except by lengthening the filter, which I let you do quite a bit by
Yeah.
grouping up blocks. So the
Yeah.
important thing is to keep that filter away from the edge of the Nyquist band and make sure nothing gets reflected in. And you only really have to stay within several bins of the Nyquist rate for that to work. Without any kind of windowing, a Kaiser beta of 0, which means basically no windowing. The transition bandwidth is 1 bin, which at the standard numbers here is 40 hertz. At Kaiser, a beta of 11, which pushes the side lobes way down, it's about 3 or 4 bins of transition bandwidth, but that's still only about 120 hertz, right, from the edge of the Nyquist band. So just allow yourself plenty of room there. Increase the sample rate if you have to, but allow yourself plenty of room between the edges of the filter and the Nyquist rate. And it really should just completely eliminate anything outside the desired passband.
Well, maybe this. I mean, Uli reports it for audio listening to audio channels, so I'm not sure his observations translate into impairments
Well,
in
no,
our use of.
no, because he's listening to it directly. I will say one of the first things I tested this on were the Russian letter beacons on HF. You know, with
Yeah.
because there's often a bunch of them only 100 hertz apart, and you know the existing filter can't separate them. This one definitely can. I mean, it's kind of eerie. You turn it on and off, and it just appears and disappears.
Wow.
In fact, if you
Wow.
make it too narrow, you have a hard time, you know, tuning it without a waterfall to guide you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can make these things as sharp as you want, as long as you're willing to, you know, add some delay, which I'm not
Okay.
going to do for every application.
Of course. Okay. Well, it's a great feature. I want to try it out, but it
Try
would
it. Let me know how it
be.
works.
Well, I don't, it would be nice if I could configure it. That's my, uh, rather than have to
Well,
type
yeah,
in.
the only configuration option, like I said, the filter skirts are set by they're the same as the primary filter,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that was just experimental. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way. So all I really can vary is the number of blocks of delay. And I did this right after I added a buffering feature on the output, the buffer up output, to try to send fewer but bigger Ethernet frames at lower sample rates, or with Opus, since the Opus compresses well, cut down the sample rate, or cut down the packet rate, I mean. And I figured, well, hey, if you're going to delay the output, why not just take advantage of that extra time and do better filtering at the same time? So either way, you can add delay, but you know, you get more out of it if you do it with the filter and by just accumulating data at the output. Which, I mean, that might be useful. That's useful for FM, for example.
Yeah.
I also let the Opus encoder. I mean, one of the reasons I picked a 20 millisecond block of the first place was because that was the preferred block size of the Opus codec. But it'll support multiples of that and also submultiples. And I think I gave you up to 4 because the largest frame size I really want to use with Opus before you run into portability problems is about 80 milliseconds. So that's the only reason for the 4 limitation. I could go even larger if you wanted, but I doubt you really need it. Try it out.
Well,
So what you think.
okay. Well, I look forward to trying it out. That would be, I'm pretty much out of the development phase now, and
Okay.
into the deployment and configuration and testing phase of 331. And so,
Yeah, like I said, I'm not interested so much in sharp skirts as I am in side lobe suppression. So if anybody really wants to give it a workout, let me know how good it is at suppressing, you know, really strong out of band interferers. That's what filters are for.
yeah. Yeah.
I also
Well,
have this thing about making sideband sound really good. Modern radios, sideband radios that use DSP are really sound good compared to the crystal filter days because you can go down. You can't reach zero. It's impossible to reach zero with sideband, but you can go a lot lower than 300 and it sounds a lot better. I think a lot of sideband signals on HF these days sound better than most FM repeaters because the repeaters take out everything below 300 hertz to get rid of the PL tone. But I'm becoming a perfectionist here, I know.
Yeah. It's
You get on a roll on something, you just keep wanting to make it better and
well,
better, even
and
if you
I
don't
want
really
to,
have to,
and
you know.
I'm grateful. Once again, I'm standing on your shoulders with new data processing. So I'm I'm excited.
Yeah,
We
Phil, I
we
agree with you that a little more bass helps intelligibility.
Oh, I mean, well, I don't know about intelligibility, but it certainly helps naturalness.
Right.
Yeah, how
I find it
natural it sounds.
improves the intelligibility, but I
Yeah.
have TS2000 as my primary radio, and I set it to a low point of 200 hertz, and that seems to help.
Yeah, I mean, I can go actually past zero if you want. I mean, except that there's necessarily going to be an image response if there's something on the other side. If it's just noise, it probably doesn't hurt. But it's impossible to actually get to zero with single sideband, as you might know. You can get arbitrarily close. Just read up on the mathematics of Hilbert transforms.
Right.
That's basically what I'm doing is I'm, you know, generating what's essentially a Hilbert transform using a FFT. You just knock off everything on the other side of the carrier, and it's inherently gives you a Hilbert transform.
So for you,
Speaking of that sort of thing, does anyone know if they've gotten the QMX to do sideband yet?
The what?
The SDR, the SDR transceiver that should have.
QRP Labs, yeah, that Hans Summer's working on.
Right. Yeah.
I think that he's now got his sight set on 4 days in May, just before Dayton, to release the sideband stuff.
Oh, okay.
So that's coming up pretty quick.
I'll
I was going
hold
to
them
say,
to it at Dayton.
you know, Phil talking about all the peaks and stuff that he's doing, it reminds me of the 80-20 rule, where, you know, 80% of the effort goes into the last 20% of fixing things up.
The other thing
about
I'm
90,
still
10
waiting.
or 95-5, actually.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm still waiting for is the SCOM 7330 controller replacement.
Yeah.
What's
Dave
that?
says he's got it running.
What's that?
The SCOM has a ubiquitous 7330 that's now discontinued. That's a repeater controller.
Oh, repeater controller. Okay.
Yeah, and he's got a replacement for it, but he says he's got the prototype running, but I want some hardware.
Yeah. I'm not surprised you to know that I've already made the K9Q radio into a repeater. It can be a repeater. It's a hack I put together as a demo for something to possibly go on the space station. FM repeater with multiple inputs.
This kind of reminds me of Emacs.
Yeah, 8 megabytes and constantly swapping.
Yeah.
Back when 8 megabytes was a lot.
Well, my big request is being able to program the voice recorder over the air, which the 7330 doesn't.
Yeah.
And I have a RLC-2A that has been running forever, but its voice recorder died, but I used it all the time when
you just want to record a repeater?
No, it's to set up custom announcements.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Like
if you just
when
want to record a
our club
repeater, I
meeting
can do that
is,
for
when
you too.
field day is, things like that. So I record
Okay.
that over the air and then have it as one
Yeah.
of the
Those speed
rotating.
synthesizers on repeaters are kind of embarrassingly old, aren't they?
Yeah, it's old
I mean,
TI
maybe
chip.
quaint, I suppose, but they certainly aren't state-of-the-art speed synthesis, that's for sure. And I mean, I hear them in Spanish too, because I'm right near Mexico, and they sound just as bad in Spanish as they do in English. At 2 o'clock in the morning, everything's quiet, and suddenly a cacophony breaks out of all these repeaters keying up and IDing and announcing the time.
Yeah, we have a top of the hour announcement.
I don't think you're supposed to do that. It used to be in the rules that repeaters were not allowed to beacon. They couldn't transmit unless they were in use. I don't know if that rule's still there, but obviously it's ignored.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a lot of things that the beacon, our local DMR machine essentially sends a CWID like every 5 minutes.
Yeah. DMR is my next step. Right now, I'm not doing it with DMR, but I'm working with Jonathan, what's this called? G3L? Okay, I can forget. The guy does MMDVM. And we're going to work to connect his stuff to my stuff so that I can do for DMR and D-Star and so forth what I'm already doing with FM, which is basically, vacuuming everything and record it all and let you listen to multiple streams at once, regardless of the modulation method. As long as I can somehow get the bits back into PCM.
You're going to make it cognitive?
Well, I had this idea, since AI is the big deal these days, just make a large language model and try to train it to do what a DVSI codec does. And then, if somebody sues you for patent infringement, you say, okay, go in there and do me an analysis. Tell me what part of this thing is infringing your patent.
Yeah.
And they probably didn't anticipate this when they wrote it, so their claims might not read on it. I don't know. I hate that patent stuff. I'm glad to have left it long behind me when I retired.
You know, at least now
Give
we
me
have
a headache.
a commercial radio out now that has M17 in it.
Yeah.
So that's a good place to go after.
Well, you've seen the I mean, ARDC supports M17. We believe it's a good idea, but you've probably also seen the XKCD cartoon, right?
Yeah.
The world's got 14 standards. I'm going to go up and make a standard that does everything, and then next there are 15 standards.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's a favorite. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, God, I mean, I go to some of the repeater club meetings, and people walk in with these piles of radios, one for each mode. DMRs know it's common, but somebody's got a P25 radio, somebody's got a D-Star radio, somebody's got a Fusion radio, and there's no radio has more than one mode in it, except for FM.
Yeah. I've got an Open Spot 3, which has the codec built into it in the hotspot. So
Yeah,
we do cross mode.
yeah, that's running MMBVM. That's got Jonathan's code in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've funded him also for another year or so of development work through ARDC. My neighbors call this place the NSA house when they look at the antennas on the roof, and they don't know how right they are. NSA and the ham bands. I mean, I don't really have an interest in listening to anything else, and I don't actually have the A to D converters and the capacity to handle it anyway. But I do grab everything on 220 and 440. I even got an FT8 on 220. Somebody sent me emails saying, "Oh, I see you're reporting on 222," and I went down and checked, and there it was in my log. I didn't even know was there anything there, but I set it up just for the hell of it as one of the entries in my radio deconfig file on that receiver, and fed it into the same FT8 decoders as all the others. And lo and behold, something popped up.
We have a 220 repeater here in town that's cross-linked to our 2-meter machine.
Yeah, we have, there's a lot of that here too. Well, I mean, Southern California's got probably the biggest link repeater system I know of, the PAPA system. It's up to about 40 repeaters now linked.
Yeah.
And that's just the analog system.
Yeah, I have
we
a
also have
220 repeater that's our link repeater.
we,
It's
we
not an
also have
open
a number
repeater,
of
but it
900
links our others.
900 megahertz machines here as well.
Yeah. I don't know.
They're usually cross-linked to 70 centimeters.
900 megahertz is actually even useful. I mean, usable anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we in the Detroit metro area, we have a number of 900 megahertz machines, but they're almost always associated with a companion 70 centimeter machine. So a lot of people that get on 70 centimeters don't realize that they're also being translated to 900.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of 1.2 gig machines in the area, but I don't think they're up anymore.
There's surprisingly few of those here. You'd think it'd be busy anywhere, it'd be here, but I listened for a while and heard very little activity on 23 centimeters. Same with 6 meters.
Yeah.
FM. I do hear 10-meter activity occasionally because, well, after all, why not? I mean, it's part of what my RX 888 gets, so I just put in all the 10-meter FM channels, and occasionally I'll hear a few. The problem is they usually fade in and out before I can hear an ID.
The only 1.2 gig transceiver I have is a Linko handheld that's a tribander. They put that out a little while back, and it runs on 70 centimeters and 2 meters and 1.2 gig. And then I have their other one, which is a 220-900 dual bander. So between those two Alinco handhelds, I cover all 5 of those bands.
In analog.
In analog, yeah, it's all FM.
Yeah. The 23 is not a bad band. One of the problems with 70 out here, besides being full of DMR, is that there's radar. And it's not on a lot, but it can be very annoying when it is on.
Well, we're above line A here, so
Oh,
we
so
can't. We can't use the bottom 10 megahertz of 70 centimeters at all.
well, I know I keep asking how people are using it here, and everybody says, well, links. And I say, well, tell me who they are. And well, we can't, so I have no idea whether it's being used even down here.
Yeah,
But, you're
we're
still
just too
free to,
close to Canada. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's certainly free to use, 430 or 450.
Yeah.
And you're probably not subject to marine radars or Navy radars like we are.
No, but we did have a 70 centimeter ATV machine here for a while, but they had to put it up in the upper end of the band because we couldn't use the area between 420 and 430.
Yeah, they're bandwidth hogs. I think a lot of them are just going digital now. I mean, running NTSC on the air these days is just,
Yeah.
come on, it's just too late for that now. And to expect 6 megahertz to be kept clear for them, no. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not going to work.
But it makes for a simple receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I
makes for a
guess the
simple
receivers
converter.
even
Yeah.
the receivers even receive NTSC anymore. I mean, how long is that going to be?
Well, I had a down converter, and it had to be modified for high side injection in order to be able to be used on the local ATV machine here.
Yeah.
And I've got a
Well,
couple.
what I'm saying is, at least you have a receiver that can still, TV that can still receive analog, huh?
Yeah, I have a little low power transmitter I use for demo at field day of ATV. It's a cable TV modulator.
Oh,
It
okay.
actually is vestigial sideband. I specifically wanted that so I wouldn't be splattering.
Yeah.
So I have it down at what's it, channel 59 is the low end. And it's low power, and we're not in the restricted zone, though we're near it. Between the paved pause and Canada, and we also are near Millstone, Haystack.
Oh, yeah.
They
I know
don't like.
Millstone's got a radar at 23. Did you have one at 70 also?
Yeah, they've got one at 433 or whatever it is.
Okay. I remember that site very well because they tracked us FSAT Oscar 10 right after it was launched in 1983.
Ah.
And we went over there that night on the first pass and watched them do it. That was fun. That was 1983. So a lot of the stuff was.
Yeah, Phil Erickson is the director there now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know there's the radar and there's the Haystack Observatory. They're distinct, aren't they?
Well, it's part of the same thing.
Because the Millstone radar then was used specifically for tracking deep space objects, spacecraft. I don't know if that's still its primary use.
It's actually being used as incoherent scatter ionospheric radar.
Oh, for scientific work
Right.
as opposed to just being a NORAD sensor.
Right.
Yeah, in those days I had a contact there, and we actually determined the orbit for Oscar 10 after its kick motor firing, and I called them up and gave them my orbital elements. That was a trip. I mean, it's routine now, for people to make their own orbital elements from observations, but 1983 that was still pretty new. I spent the whole winter before that writing that software. I spent much of that time in the Bell Labs Murray Hill Library reading books on orbit determination. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I thought I'd need to use the Cray to run it, but it turned out no, it ran in just a few minutes on a VAX. And of course, now it run a second or so on a Raspberry Pi.
Of course, we were running a orbital simulator on the PDP-9 called Space War.
Oh, Space War, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I see some of these animation, simulation animation engines. I forget what they're called, but some of them were pretty good, simulating, planetary collisions and doing all the gravity. I mean, that's just very impressive. Knowing how hard it is to do an n-body problem like that, it's still very impressive.
So I did build one of the PDP-11 kits from planned obsolescence.
I got one of those too.
was a lot of fun.
Yeah, because the PDP 1140 was my baby when I was at Cornell, and then my first job at Bell Labs, they had a PDP 1170, so it brought me back.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I know what used to be behind that front panel,
Yeah.
and it required a lot of three-phase power too. Now it just uses a micro USB cable.
Yeah. It's come a long
One way to
ways.
look at it.
Yeah, ours was, we had a 1024 dot graphics scope attached to the PDP-9. That's what we were
Is that
doing
a
spacewalk
Tectonic
on.
storage scope?
It was a graphics 2 scope was the name of it.
Was it a
there
storage scope or was it a CRT?
It was a CRT,
Okay.
vector scan CRT.
Okay. Because the Tektronix storage scopes are very popular in the 70s, and really the only way you could generate really complex graphics with a low-end mini computer like that. There's no way you could do it in real time. You remember storage scopes, right? They were Tektronix's bread and butter for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
They were kind of memorizing to watch, like 4 in the morning, when you're half awake and you're watching this bright spot painting the screen for the 20th time or 2000th time or whatever. I think I went into altered states of consciousness in those days, just from a computer. No medications, just from sitting in front of a computer for so many hours.
Yeah, the room where the PDP-9 was, we called the Eternal Daylight Center. We never knew what time it was down there. We'd go there after school.
Oh, yeah, like a casino.
When I was in high school, we'd be going down playing
just
with
like
it.
A casino, yeah.
And we'd come out and be dark. It's like, oh.
Yep. Or the sun was coming up on the other
Yeah,
horizon.
but yeah, we were original grade school geeks. We were working on Dartmouth time sharing in sixth grade. We were the original. Hanover High School had the first off-campus terminal for Dartmouth time sharing.
An ASR 33 or something?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we had this. Now I'm trying to remember the number. Was it 25 that had the square box of type? That was the first one. Then we had 33s.
Model 19.
Maybe it's the 19, yeah.
I had a 19 that had the
Was that ASCII or Bordeaux?
Box, yeah.
It was ASCII.
The IT was ASCII? Oh, it was a 50 that was Bordeaux.
It worked through the acoustic coupler.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a penny whistle? I built a penny whistle from a kit.
Huh.
That was acoustic coupler, 110 baud.
I had a borrowed acoustic coupler. I borrowed. I don't remember where I got it. It was one of those ones in a wooden box. I've seen pictures occasionally. Open it up, throw the handset in there. The terminal I had did not have a break key, but I discovered there was a rotary switch on the modem that allowed you to invert mark in space. So I just reach over and flip that knob and flip it back, and that would send a break.
A few years ago, when we had the 50th anniversary of Dartmouth time sharing, I worked up. I was asked to do a interface to a 33 so we could drive it from just a regular computer, so that we could type out the announcement for the thing on the 33.
33s. You have a paper tape reader?
Yep.
I got, well, I'll tell you, I tried so many different ways of feeding long tapes in that thing without ripping them and also without having to stand there and feed it.
Yep, that was our memory medium.
The method, one of the guys told me, I think he learned it in the Air Force, was to wrap up the paper tape in a figure 8 and then throw it in an empty trash can and feed it from there, and it would usually feed without tangling. Kind of like the way a box of cables feeds now.
Right.
Because otherwise you had to stand there, either that or it would just snarl up and rip your tape, which was something you really didn't want. Man, I don't miss paper tape, that's for sure. Takes
I
me
still
back.
have paper tape here,
I don't think
including the source code to MSCI Basic.
I may have some old mag tapes. I seriously doubt if they're still readable, but I think I have some. I realized a long time ago, the only way to protect data is to keep it spinning. If you write a piece of media and put it on the shelf, won't be readable if you ever come back to it. What you do is you just keep buying bigger and bigger hard drives and copying everything over. That way, you
Yeah.
know it'll be there.
Yep, that's what I've been doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although hard drives are starting to go away. You're going to be
No, hard drive, solid state drive.
drives.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do wonder about
I'm
longevity of those,
I'm
but
pretty concerned how ephemeral all our stuff is.
yeah.
100 years from now, nobody's going to see it.
Yeah. Thousands of years from now, some
That's why I
alien
have
will come here and it'll be just like Forbidden Planet. You know, there was once a great civilization here and they all died in one night.
So I have a T-shirt from Epson that makes the pigment printers for photographers. It says "Print your legacy,"
Okay. All right.
and then I mean that's and I've printed a lot of my work because that's the stuff that my heirs are going to find. They're not going to go through that that USB drive that I have that has 50,000 images on it.
I know. I keep thinking about Forbidden Planet. Well, that will be us someday. I don't know where our machines keep running long after we're gone. I don't know. Theirs did.
Yeah.
That was a great movie. A lot of old sci-fi is very prophetic nowadays.
Oh yeah.
I mean, even Wall-E, right? I mean, the opening scene of Wall-E shows, you're approaching the Earth, you're going through this shell of defunct satellites. I love that. And that movie was what, 2008, 2009, and today it's reality.
So have you seen that new movie? I think it's on Peacock called The Wild Robot.
No.
That's actually pretty good. That's it's essentially a robot that gets stranded in a forest full of animals, and he somehow got separated from the rest of the robots that they're supposed to get a task, and so he's trying to learn what task it is that he's to perform with all these animals surrounding him. It's pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
Okay.
And then eventually, the company that built him tries to catch up to him and tries to recapture him.
Sure. I don't know if anybody's thinking about programming all these machines with Asimov's rules.
I've read a number of, science fiction novels that talk about, the three rules, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It shows up in places like, on Star Trek as well, Data, supposedly a positronic brain.
Right. Well, and the whole issue of, when does an artificial life form start to have the same kind of rights as a human or other natural, sentient life forms? I mean, that's a topic that's been discussed forever in science fiction, and
there's a great
in reality for long.
There's a great series called Silver Ships, with which they thoroughly explore that.
Yeah. A lot of stuff is becoming real. I mean, we've blown past a lot of Star Trek already. I mean, other things, we're nowhere near like warp drive and stuff like that. But other things, I mean, look at their speech synthesizers. I mean, it's Major Barrett talking in his high monotone voice, right? We can do a little better than that already. In fact, we blew past that a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and look at how well AI, as you call it, does language comprehension these days.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's what it's designed to do, is languages more than anything else.
Yeah. Real-time translation. I mean,
it's getting pretty good.
It's crazy. It was like a couple of years ago, my wife was taking care of her mom, and she had somebody from Europe that was the nurse. And this nurse didn't speak English very well, but between the two of them, they just used Google Translate on their phone to talk to each other. It was really wild.
Yeah. I remember at a supercharging station once a couple years ago. There was some other guy, Chinese guy, who was obviously visiting, did not speak English at all. He pulled out his phone and started using Google Translate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just,
Yeah,
it's
right.
amazing. Yeah.
I've used it to translate some of the Chinese radio broadcasts. I'm still trying occasionally to get decode DRM on HF at night, although it's an exercise in frustration. But for a while, I was getting some of the Chinese broadcasts pretty well. And I would just feed them into my phone, and it would just start logging it in English. It was by no means perfect, but I could get a pretty good idea what they were talking about.
I like the way you can use Google Translate with a camera, and then you
Yes.
can, like,
Oh
stick.
man, when traveling, that is oh
Yeah.
geez.
You just hold it up to a sign written in Japanese, and it displays the English letters for you.
Yeah.
You know where I first started using that? It was in Norway, trying to figure out how to use the washing machine.
Yeah.
It
Well,
worked well.
you can almost start to read Norwegian after a while. It's
Yeah, after a while, but
yeah.
the washer and the dryer at the rocket range were Norwegian. So another thing I did was find the British version of the manual. Those languages remind me of that XKCD cartoon you just mentioned.
Yeah.
But yeah, all those languages, well, around there, all except Finnish, they're all just the same language, pronounced a little differently and written a little differently.
Well, two languages mixed up. It's Germanic and Italic.
Right. Well, somebody's already tried to do what the XKCD cartoon was talking about, and that was inventing Esperanto.
Esperanto, and where did that go? Yeah.
Right.
Like it or not, the international language sort of became English, although I don't know how much longer that's going to be true.
It's interesting because when my dad was young and he was in school back in the 30s, the scientific language was German.
Yes, that's right. In grade school, they wanted me to learn it for that reason, but we couldn't find a teacher.
Yeah, and the diplomatic language was French.
It's French, right? Oh, it's still in your passport. Take a look.
Well, that's because we're going to annex Canada.
Oh, God.
Canada, Greenland, and the Gulf of America.
Yeah, right.
Oh, my God.
Oh, God. We got
I haven't figured out why
1 week left of this shit to go through. I don't know.
I don't know why we need Greenland for national security, but
why did Hitler need Poland? I mean, come on. I mean, it's
well, Poland is the universal battlefield.
Yeah,
hence
or
its name.
Belgium.
Poland actually means flatland.
Does it really?
Yeah.
I don't know
So
that.
that's why the battles were always there. There's the
It's
flatland.
easy to fight on flatland, yeah. I know. What does Belgium mean? Supposedly, according to Douglas Adams, it means something really rude, but nobody knows what it is.
What does?
The word Belgium, apparently. Well, remember, he used it in Hitchhiker's Guide as a swear word. But nobody on Earth actually knows what it means, apparently.
I don't know how many.
I think it just means confused. They don't know what language they're speaking.
I don't know
French.
how many of you guys read Saturday morning breakfast cereal, which is an online.
Oh, my wife does. She's
man,
yeah.
the one today is very up on it. He says it has important news. What he says, Winkel means shellfish in English, but store in Dutch. So if you have an English shellfish store in the Netherlands, it's a Winkel. So in German, Winkel means corner. So if you move that store to a corner in Germany, it's a Winkel. It gets worse.
We had an instance of that. We had a well-known politician here in New England who was Dudley Dudley. And her first name was Dudley, and she married someone whose last name was Dudley.
Okay. And she didn't change. Okay.
Yeah, she was well known because she was involved with knocking down the proposal that we had. Onassis wanted to build a oil refinery on the New Hampshire coast.
Yeah.
And did not. We ended up getting a nuclear power plant instead.
Well, actually, the two I'd rather have, but
yeah.
I mean,
of course, it would have been made life cheaper here in New England if we had the refinery there. There's still people who use fuel oil to heat the houses.
Yeah, I rented a house briefly in New Jersey that had fuel oil. Never again. It almost killed me one night. I got home. I turned the heat on. I sat down at the computer, started working, and suddenly I realized I had this splitting headache. And I looked up and noticed like little bits of, not even smoke. It was like little threads of black floating around the room. And I realized what was going on. And I, turned it off, opened up all the windows, ran outside.
Oof.
It turns out that the crew that had serviced the furnace had not tightened down the air shutter, after adjusting it, and it snapped closed, so the thing was burning with no air.
Oh God.
Oh my God! If I had just gone to bed, I probably would have been dead. Yeah, never again will I. I mean, even when it worked, it was smelly. I mean, house smells like an airport. It's.
So we just had our nearly 30-year-old furnace replaced with a new 97% efficient furnace. And it's interesting because it has just a PVC pipe for the exhaust, which doesn't even get warm to the touch.
Oh, it's that good, huh?
Wow.
Yeah. And then it has an intake, a PVC intake, to bring in outside air, so it doesn't, suck all the air from inside the house. And the other thing that I didn't really think about, but is apparently what it does, it produces a lot of water.
Well, yeah.
Because
natural gas has hydrogen in it, right?
Yeah, natural gas. I mean, if you have very efficient burning, it just produces nothing but carbon dioxide and water.
That's the theory.
And so it's got a little sump pump that pumps into the basement sink that normally was used just for the humidifier, the overflow from the humidifier. But it turns out that now that I've got this 96% or 97% efficient furnace, it spends all of its time pumping all the water that the furnace is producing.
It doesn't go up the chimney because it condenses?
Yeah, it doesn't condense much at all.
Wow.
And as a matter of fact, they have the PVC pipe is put together at an angle so that if any of it condenses in the pipe, it'll flow back into the furnace. And then it's collected and goes out that way. Because otherwise it would produce big icicles and stuff outside and
I guess it would.
Yeah. If you get too much.
I guess there must be an active blower because otherwise you wouldn't have any convection.
Yeah. Yeah, it does actually. Yeah, it does have a blower in it. But I was just amazed at how much water it produces. I mean, it produces gallons of water.
Well, every methane has 4 hydrogens in it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you won't be without drinking water if you need it.
That's a funny.
Yeah, I suppose. I figured we could like fill a 5-gallon bucket full of it and use it to water the plants or something.
Well, it's essentially distilled water.
Yeah.
CO2, use that too to water the plants or feed the plants. And so somebody on YouTube, occasionally you find some really cool stuff on YouTube. There's an awful lot of just absolute crap, but occasionally you find some real gems. There's somebody who actually tried to do the experiment of how many plants would it take to support his oxygen needs. It was a very large number.
Yeah.
In fact, I think he gave up on plants. He ended up making his own little photosynthesis reactor cells. And even then, he needed a lot of them to make enough oxygen to actually breathe. They keep the CO2 down. But he built this little, compartment out of polyethylene sheeting, and he'd go inside and sit, watching the CO2 levels, and they kept climbing up and up and up until he, really pulled out all the stops. I mean, it's not easy actually to make make enough oxygen to breathe on. It takes a lot of plants.
I'd have to say my absolute favorite YouTube video is the one where the guy takes a front loader washer machine and puts the thing on high spin cycle and then tosses a concrete block into them.
There are a couple of channels that just seem to specialize in destruction. Like Electro Broom. Wow, that guy is. Did you see him take a microwave magnetron and put it out on the floor and turn it on? He did that about a month or so. Anybody see that? Oh, I never knew that the top of the magnetron glows pink because the ceramic apparently is translucent and you're seeing the filament in the magnetron. I never would have known that. But then again, I've never operated the magnetron outside of the oven before either.
Right, yeah.
And he's like, using a stick to hold stuff over it and, arcs and sparks. And of course, he's only about, I don't know, meter and a half away with his eyes level with the thing. So he's right in the middle of the dipole field at this. Oh, geez.
Yeah. Better him than me.
Well, I mean, until now, he just played with microwave oven transformers, which are deadly enough, right? But, you combine that with the magnetron, it's, oh, man. Well, he's certainly blown past the Ukrainians some years ago who used a microwave oven to make a death ray. At least they had the good sense to stand behind the thing with a long pole. I mean, electric boom is amusing, but I worry about people, imitating his stuff. He's always saying, "Don't try this at home," but then the only reason people watch him is because they're waiting to see how he's going to fry himself this time.
About right.
I don't know how he's still alive. He actually seems to know his stuff, except when it comes to electrical safety. He goes around the world, checking out all the plugs in the hotels to see if their GFIs work. Then discovers that there's no GFIs in the outlets in most other countries. You got to go find a breaker panel someday. So meanwhile, this apartment, the room is dark and his wife's yelling at him. He's trying to figure out where
we used to have that problem on the train. You take the Amtrak out to the Empire Builder going out to Montana, and some asshole would would knock the breaker out in the area on the train, and then you'd have to go find the conductor, to go and open up the fuse panel and reset the breakers. Yeah. And I got to the point where I knew where all the breakers were.
It's actually a lot of power. I had a friend, a high school buddy, who was with Amtrak his whole career, and he showed me around his track geometry trains he used to ride in. So I learned a little bit about how these things, the electrical systems work. Amtrak trains actually have a lot of AC power available because they use electric heating.
Yeah.
So they have like 50 kilowatt heaters or something, and they feed three-phase 480 from a head end. Often it's a separate generator in the locomotive because it's designed to work with a passenger train. And it's just, daisy chain from one car to the next. So actually a lot of power is available in these cars.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. But I can tell you, taking an Amtrak out in the Northwest like that in the middle of the winter time is always an adventure.
Yeah.
they if the temperature gets low enough, they have to slow the train down because they're afraid they'll break the rails.
Yeah, I can believe that. They get kind of brittle.
Then we had a case where they flat spotted the drive wheel on one of the engines, and so at Minot at 3 a.m. in the morning, they were jacking up the engine so they could change out a drive wheel.
No spare locomotive available, huh?
No, not out there.
Okay.
It's like I say, it's an adventure.
It sounds like it.
Or the plumbing will freeze up, and then so you can't take showers.
I've dabbled with the idea of taking cross-country train rides. I mean, just for the hell of it. But man, you gotta have a lot of time to budget. The problem is you don't know how much time. You have no idea when you're going to get there.
Yeah, so and that's the thing. What you do is you don't try to mix up things like planes and trains or
No.
whatever, because then they all point fingers at each other when you miss the connection. So
Well,
what we would do is we'd get on the train in Ann Arbor and go out to Chicago and then take the Empire Builder from there out to Montana, where our in-laws lived in Havre. We could get off the train there and walk 4 blocks to their house.
yeah.
And because we were on the train the entire time, if they managed to screw up a connection, then it was up to Amtrak to essentially get us there. We might get there a day late, but we would get there.
I see.
So
I was just walking those railroad tracks in September. I was in Ann Arbor.
yeah,
Yeah, my grandfather's papers are in the library at University of Michigan, and me and my brothers were researching, seeing what we could find of the family history. But
yeah,
one of the things we used to do with him, he used to live on the right on the Arboretum, and
Yep.
we would walk over to the railroad tracks and walk along them. So we were doing that in his honor.
yeah. You go to Depot Town in Ypsilanti, and the Amtrak runs right through the middle of the Depot Town in Ypsilanti.
Right.
This frightening speed that it goes through there, and I can't imagine that they haven't like killed a couple of people
I
yet.
mean, come on. You must have seen some of the YouTube videos of bullet trains flying through stations in Japan or now China. I don't
I
think
was
this is
actually on a
trains
bullet
that
train in
bad.
Japan that broke down.
Really? That's pretty rare.
Very. But yeah, we were just pulling out of Kyoto, I think, and it stopped. And they had to switch engines,
It was a train, not the power supply.
apparently.
It's quite a challenge just to get power to these locomotives at these speeds.
Yes.
The pantographs can bounce. When the French did that speed record some years ago with the new TGV section, they had to increase the tension in the overhead catenary wire. Two forms of tension. They had increased the voltage and they had increased the mechanical tension because the pantograph induces a wave in the wire, and at those high speeds, the pantograph would outrun the wave, and they couldn't let that happen. So by increasing the mechanical tension in the line, you keep the wave ahead of the pantograph. A serious amount of power in those things too. I think yeah. When a YouTube video I saw there where they showed the meters, the volts and the amps. So
Yeah.
I think it was normally they run at 25,000 volts and they went to 30. The ammeter is reading over 1,000 amps. So what's that? 30 megawatt? Yeah, 30 megawatts. That's a lot even for a train. 30 megawatts.
Yeah, so now, like these diesel electromotives, that they normally run, where they have a diesel engine that drives a generator.
Yeah, they're usually no more than a couple megawatts the most.
Yeah, I know a guy who writes the code for that stuff.
For what?
For diesel generator or for diesel locomotives.
They have software?
Yes, they have software.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and yeah, he used to actually be in the group there that was writing some code for our key fob systems. But he got tired of essentially working on automobiles, and he got this job with I don't know if it was GE or somebody that they ended up essentially hiring him on because he knew how to do all this embedded firmware stuff.
Yeah.
And they set him down and said, now you can write code for trains. So he said what was funny was he used to commute on a train to go to a job to write code for cars. And now he writes.
Cars write code for a train. Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Can I interject a question about
Yeah, sure, Rob.
your radio software?
Sure.
I'm just Clint reported early in this emailed me that uh, his K9Q is a AAA system out in Utah had stopped working. So while you guys are talking, I've logged on and installed the latest Whisper Demon software, which includes pretty current your stuff.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing the kinds of problems I was describing on the Orange Pi, where they were when the
Oh boy.
CPUs got really busy. Uh,
Mhm.
I think I think I'm seeing the same thing on a very high power server in Utah.
Oh boy. Start.
So is there any indication I don't see any indication of a problem in the radio D log. Is would you report like I need more FFTs
Okay.
threads or something
Well,
like
all right.
that?
You can see, I mean, the FFTs take pretty much a constant amount of time. So just by running top, you can see how close those threads are to maxing out. Cores to run. Now, the inverse FFTs that run in each receiver thread,
they're
they
almost
operate off
invisible.
of a 4-ring buffer. The FFTs right into a 4-way ring buffer, which is ends up being, a lot of memory at
Yeah.
block sizes. And if the thread falls behind, it will count that as an error, and you'll see that in the statistics for each thread or each slice.
So that would come out in the syslog?
Not in the syslog, no, but in
What,
the real-time data, you'll see it. If you,
where can I mean,
all
is
right,
there any way for
run,
me to see it
run
in a log?
control, go ahead, run control on a channel, and you'll see under filtering, you'll see drops, a counter for drops.
Let me see. Okay, this is okay.
Enter filter too, in fact.
Let's see. I mistyped it there. Oh,
It says
doesn't show
Kaiser
up. I have to
beta
control
filter
it for
2
some reason.
drops.
Hold on a second. It's hard to, your character mode graphics are not compatible with that terminal window, so I've got to get
I've had this problem with some sites, yeah.
I don't know why it is. This is a regular, Ubuntu 24.04
Yeah,
installation.
I've been having this problem mostly on Ubuntu, and I don't know why. I mean, come on,
Yeah,
first this stuff is 40 years old. You think they would have gotten it working stable by
yes, you would think it'd be stable, but let's see. Can I share? Yeah, I can share something here. Here's.
I'm going to take off, guys.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right, see, Dave.
Yep.
It's so this is well, I'll just briefly show. This is the web page from the 888. And I was pointing out earlier the utility of running at 129 megasamples.
Yeah.
I've sent. I don't think Clint is not likely with us still, but I sent him an email and said, "What is all of this junk up here at 48?" I'm not sure if he's a. Now look at. Did you see? Just
Yeah,
see
I
the
saw that. I
flash?
saw it. I know. I've seen that too.
That happens when the CPUs are 100% busy.
Okay, well, remember what's going on in the spectrum thread that you're looking at. You're seeing a thread that every 20 milliseconds has to do the sum of a square of a whole bunch of bins, and it too can fall behind, right?
Yeah.
And it's got to do actually a lot more work than a receiver slice.
I can see that. No, I can see it. And now I'll stop sharing that, and I'll show you that we can look at the control channel where I'm now having a hard time finding. There it is. Stop now. Stop sharing. Share this. Hold on a second. Yeah, this one. Okay,
Yeah,
so this is
drops. Okay, that's for what is it? That's just for a regular linear channel. So you can see the drops counter under filtering is 0.
okay. So
No,
if
two
there were a
boxes.
problem, block.
Middle
See,
box where it says filtering. That one.
Oh,
Right
drops
there.
under
Right,
filter
drops.
2 and drops.
Right.
Okay, so
Drops is
I
a
see.
counter, the number of times it falls a frame behind the FFT.
Okay,
Yeah,
Um,
rarely going to see anything here. Occasionally I'll see startup transients, but I very rarely see that counter go anywhere unless the system's
okay.
really in
Well,
trouble.
well,
However, you might want to try this on the Spectrum thread. You might see some increases there because it's having to do more.
yeah, I don't care about the flashes, but when listening to audio, the audio threads also have burps
I've
and
noticed that.
stutters
Noticed that.
at
Now,
the same time.
while you're listening, can you run control on that channel and tell me if you see any drops? Because I haven't seen any, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Well, let's see. It, I can't easily. Let's see if I turn on. I can turn on here. Let me just turn on an audio job here in Start Audio. I don't know if you guys hear that, but I'm hearing WWV quite loudly. Now, do you want me? I should
I don't
go
think
and tune to. I
I
should
don't know.
go.
I know what WWV sounds like. It just but the control pane you're showing is for
But I'm not on that.
whisper audio.
Control isn't on that channel.
All
Let me
right.
go to the WWV. Okay.
Yes. Watch the same one. See if they're
Okay.
correlated anyway. If there have been any.
It's,
Yeah. Pick your one. Pick the one you want.
oh, I have to.
Don't you want SSRC 1000? That's the
Whatever
same
it's
one you're
coming out
listening
on.
to.
Whichever one it's coming out on. There you go. Well, I don't see any drops there.
I don't see any drops. Yeah.
Um,
That's the wrong SSRC.
is it? Is it 10 megahertz?
That's not what he's listening to, though.
Oh, all right. All right. Sorry, I got another window obscuring part of the pane here.
Part of the flash you saw on the Spectrum was an overload, ADC overrange.
I find it hard to believe that it would do that much damage unless it's a sustained overload.
It was simultaneous because it showed the count.
Yeah. You don't have a Zoom control. I can't turn down. Can't hear you guys. I'm overwhelmed by the WWV voice.
Oh.
Like I could turn off the audio, of course, on WWV, but then the processing goes down. I don't know. It sounds a little rough edge to me, but I don't know what it. My hearing should not be used to judge any audio
Oh,
quality.
I mean,
So
the problem you're talking about is pretty dramatic. I mean, it'll be there or not there. It won't be
yeah,
subtle.
yeah. We have to wait to the even minutes or when the CPUs get 100% busy for
Yeah, well,
that much.
it's happening when
I can't. Let's see. Where's the
whisper
time
crunching
here?
hits at every 2 minutes. That's when the problem happens.
Yeah, it happens. It happens when the CPUs all go to 100%. Well, Whisper Demon's running the Whisper decoders
Yeah.
on all the channels. So,
Well, I mean, it uses, I don't know how big your caches are, but I mean, this is a pretty memory intensive application. I mean, the FFT is pretty big. Look how big it is.
there's no swapping going on or anything. So you saw
No, but there's also a level of swapping between cache and main memory, right? And don't forget, main memory is pretty damn slow compared to modern CPUs.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Right. So maybe cache hit ratios are worth some attention. I mean, that's a lot of what FFT wisdom planning is all about, is to figure out the best ways to use the cache.
Yeah.
That's
well,
where it comes from.
So if I go back into, oops, here, that's this. You see how this is the background CPU. You're seeing about it's 11% busy.
Yeah, we're coming up on it here. Okay, that channel is 20-meter whisper. It's working. I don't see any drops. So you've been up for a while. Oops.
Look at that runtime error. I got to do
0. What the hell?
Oh, that's my problem. I think that's something internal to Whisper.
I don't recognize as one of my messages, but
I think it's something with
hit Control L, refresh the screen. You know about that, right?
Yeah, there it goes.
There you go.
But you can see hard to read it when it's in a TMUX with pane, but
Yeah, I don't know what wrong with all these different terminal, why we need so many terminal types, but I
yeah.
play a full round until it works, and then I forget, and then until the problem reoccurs.
Well, you don't have you. It works on most
Yeah,
systems. This is,
I know. Works on mine. All
Mine
right,
started
so I
doing
don't
that
see.
just recently, and I threw a lang equals C in front of it.
I
It just
tried
may
that
pass it.
too. Well,
Then I run GNU Screen, and I have to do the UTF-8, turn that on. So I may have screwed that
yeah, I
up on
use
mine.
UTF-8 for everything. In fact, I set you probably noticed that I have a liking for putting commas in large numbers because I find them utterly unreadable otherwise. And that does require the locale features to be working. I don't think locale C will work for a program like Control. That's why I do all that. That's why I have
Right. I do not get the 1,000 separators. That's
yeah.
true.
Because especially frequencies, I just, I go blind trying to read long strings of zeros and counting
yeah.
zeros.
The only problem, I agree with you, but it's really nice to be able to cut and paste numbers from
I
one.
know. Well, and
You can't have both. I mean,
well,
either
the,
that or you
the
have to.
the input routines ought to ignore zeros. Then,
Yes, they should. But
we write our own version of stirtol or whatever that
yeah.
or zero, there's or whatever the separator is in your language, because the Germans do it backwards.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what those. I gotta. Well, there's something to dig out. This is the kind of stuff that
Right.
I'm looking at now. It's Control L. Let's see if I.
Well, I'll look around again, see if there's any
Okay.
obvious I've overlooked. But I mean, I know what you're talking about. I occasionally, well, I've seen it happen in the Orange Pie when you asked me to go in there.
Yeah. It's
So
it's severe in the Orange Pie.
maybe it's just that whatever you're doing is just flushing the cache out so completely that it takes forever to get loaded again, and by that time you've run out of a real time deadline.
Yeah, I mean, do you utilize any core whatever the preferences, or I forget the term, but when you tack a
Affinity. No,
affinity,
I
yes,
don't.
it's
I don't. I figure the kernel knows more about that stuff than I do, so I never tried that.
probably true, but it's I wonder
Well,
if on some of these it might maybe in an
There's
experiment.
one thing I could do. It's a relatively straightforward test. The size of that ring buffer I mentioned is a compile time constant. And it's set at
Yeah.
it's a variable called capital ND. And you'll see in a filter.h. And you might try increasing it to 8 or something and then see if it makes any difference at all.
Yeah, I think I tried that
Make it,
experiment
make
on
it a
the
power
Orange
of
Pie
3.
and I didn't see anything on the Orange Pie when I tried that experiment.
No change, no difference.
Didn't seem to make any difference. But
It'll
I've
use more
gained.
memory, but it'll,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you can see, this is a
I mean,
16 gig.
it's always
I think.
possible I have a bug in how I'm writing into that buffer because it sure looks like I'm like stepping on my tail or something in that
Well,
buffer. The artifacts you're seeing that make you think that's
yeah.
what it is. But
Well,
if that were happening, I would expect the drops count to go up.
yeah. Well, it's beyond me. I mean, it works
Yeah.
well. It works. There's
I
except
mean,
for
it could be
my.
something. I mean, it occurred to me, I could be doing something really stupid, like instead of writing right behind the write pointer, staying right ahead of the read pointer, which means I'm not actually using the buffer for anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to make that kind of stupid modulo
Yeah.
picket fence mistake, so I can go back and look at that again.
Okay. Well, you're welcome to, you can experiment on the Pi if that's useful to you.
I mean, I rarely see that problem here, but I'm not hitting it like you are with.
Yeah, I think I mean you might be able to simulate the problem just by running stress, and just stress your CPU.
Yeah.
And then take a look at what happens to your thread.
I can try that.
Because I don't know, at some point in this process, I observed that I could reproduce the problem by running stress at on all the cores.
I believe you.
Anyway, I mean these threads aren't so busy, right? If you look at
no, not more.
Once
they get scheduled in time.
yeah, this is
A
this
lot
is.
of them, as you know.
I mean, it seems, but of course, when we get to, well, it'll be another 25 seconds, but when we get there, um, we will, that we'll go to 100%. I wondered, I thought I saw briefly that during the CPU 100 time, that the FFT threads and your proc AAA thread also reported 99%.
Well, that would make sense, right? If the problem
Yeah.
is cache flush
Here we go. We are
or
well.
memory
Let me
tank,
just run a
right?
stress up here, and we can see it. Okay, stress minus C
I
16.
keep telling you to control your parallelism here.
It's, there we are. We're at 100%.
Yeah.
We're not going to. Of course, we can't see the. Now I'm sure I could filter here to look at your. Let me drag this thing up and just see if we can't see the FFT threads. There they are. Okay.
Yeah.
So they've gone to 35, but they're still, even with all the,
Have they where they were?
they're higher than they were. If I turn off
Yeah.
stress up here, let
Turn
me
off
stop.
stress and see what happens to the FFT thread. The
Okay,
difference
so
is
I
definitely going
stop
to
it
be,
there. So there, I turned it off,
it
no
went up.
stress. And we're at
Yep.
25, 27. It
There
look,
you go.
so would you associate that with cache misses?
Absolutely
Yeah.
cache contention. Obviously, what else
Okay.
could it be? They're doing exactly the same operations. The only way
Yeah.
if you get more CPU time is if it's spending more time filling cache
Well,
misses.
then but even so on average they still have plenty of time, but perhaps instantaneously they're not
Exactly.
getting it. They're not getting
Exactly.
rescheduled quickly enough.
Exactly. Especially at the front end gets starved for buffering.
Yeah.
Because Proc RX 888 is not multi-threaded. It's just one thread
Yeah.
shoveling
Yeah.
into the
Yeah. Well, I could.
into the FFT queue, which is double threaded.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, originally I used to do the FFT inside of Proc RX 888, but that
Oh, yeah. That's a
long time ago.
yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. That was my divide by arrow. I'm running BC to make some calculations, and it's failing.
Oh
And
man.
it's kind of symptomless. The trouble is it's almost impossible to figure out what line. There's a system error that
Learn how to program in C for when the occasion requires.
so I know. Well, this is
Use the
when
right tool for the job.
this is the tool for this job. But the anyway, you can kind of see what I think you don't even need Whisper Demon running in order to see this problem. But I don't know. You would know better than
I
I
would
how to.
suspect 1001 has gone up also, and that's the spectrum analyzer thread that is touching all that frequency memory.
Yes. I know.
And
So
it also runs up because, after all, it's touching a lot of memory, and if it's been pushed out by other things, it's going to get pulled back in again.
yeah. Well, I mean, we can here. I'll turn off that terminate that spectrum.
And remember, it's not just cache as well. There's also TLBs, translation look-aside buffers, that are used
Yeah.
for mapping virtual memory. They also are cache-like. There's only so many of them. They have to get swapped. So
Well, look at that. Why is your spectrum running at 100% CPU? I terminated my.
wait a minute. You got two of them?
No, I think there's only one, but look at it. It's grabbed
Um,
100% of the CPU.
Remember, there's some artifacts here that threw me in top. That something changed, and the parent process gets charged for all of its children's time. I don't know if that's happened here.
Well,
What happened to Radio D, Proc?
you want me to stop Radio D?
No, don't stop it. I'm just wondering why it's not showing up in top.
Oh, well, top HC doesn't show it that way. It shows the individual threads of these
Well,
things.
yeah, I know.
So if I just run a normal top right above, you'll see
there's a main thread, and apparently it's getting charged for all of its. Yeah, there you go. See 94.4.
Yeah. That's a and that's a
And
top
I think
money.
that was a change. It threw me a couple of months ago. That usually that
Let's see. It looks like the spectrum thread is gone now. You look at
okay.
it. It just apparently it just
Just
sticks around for a while
keep
until
in
they
mind,
really.
spectrum threads are a bit expensive because of
Yeah.
all, especially when you do a zoom out and they're touching a
Yeah,
lot of.
but it looks like it took a while for it to learn that there was no customer for its spectrum, because it after what it was 30 seconds or a minute, that spec 101 went away, and
Yeah, I
1001. So
think that's right.
you're handling this. The spectrum thing isn't the problem. I mean, we can see how expensive it is, but it's not.
I'm still thinking about how to handle spectrum more efficiently when we start doing lots of them.
Yeah.
Try to avoid the redundant effort if somebody's looking at this. I'm not sure it can be done though. I mean, I think maybe this displaying a spectrum on an SDR is going to be inherently compute intensive, and one thing that's going to
Well,
save us is that we won't have many people doing it interactively.
well, Phil, I had a dumb question about that. Would it
Yes.
make sense to do multiple forward FFTs?
Well, I was thinking about that, but not if I'm going to throw them away. Or what do you mean?
Do
Replace
do
them or in
one
addition to?
instead of 1.62 million bins, do one with
I've gone over
16,000
that.
bins.
I've been tossing it around in my mind for literally years. And the reason I decided not to try to change it was I would basically be trying to do what FFT Wisdom already does, which is the reorder. I mean, if you can, I can certainly get the same result as one big monster FFT by doing a lot of little ones and then combining the results. But that's exactly how the FFT works in the first place. You got some little bitty FFTs, and then you start combining them in a tree. That's how the FFT works. It's a divide and conquer. Why it's n log n instead of n squared. But I don't think I can do better than FFTW3 in that regard.
What happens if you run your 1.62 million bin FFT and then you also run a short FFT, say 1620 bins, to match up with what the wideband spectrum from the web requests? But you
That's what I've been
don't.
thinking. Yeah.
But what? And this is the dumb part. This is the crazy part. This is Arkansas talking. What if you don't run all the data through there? What if you
How
still
do I
run?
get the spectrum without running all the data? See, that's the problem. Whatever I do here, I still have to ingest all these samples. The only question is how I ingest them. So,
So
the order complexity of an FFT is n log n. You know that, right?
yeah, I did the math trying to figure out would it make sense to do multiple small FFTs. And yeah,
Okay.
I,
So
I get it.
my
But what I'm
point is,
saying is, can
if
you?
you're normalizing per input sample, the complexity then goes as log n. So in order to cut the complexity of the FFT down by half in terms of number of operations, you've got to go from a 1,000,000 point FFT to a 1,000 point FFT. And then you're left with a bunch of little 1,000 point FFTs that aren't very useful if you're trying to make an SDR like mine. It might be useful for spectral analysis, but not for multi-channel receiver like this where you
Right. I
require.
was not suggesting replacement. I was suggesting two in parallel.
Okay, that is, yeah, I have been thinking along those lines of
But
having it.
then I see the problem as well. Instead of having an FFT every, 20 milliseconds, you're going to have it every 20 microseconds, and that's no good.
That's right. That's right. Well,
But then I'm
nothing wrong
thinking,
with
well,
that.
what if you ran one every 20 milliseconds instead of every 20 microseconds?
You mean throw data away?
Yes.
Sample it? Well, if you don't want all the data, I mean, if you only want to sample the fire hose, you can certainly do that. It means you won't get as, Respector won't be as responsive. Display won't be as responsive to what's really happening.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. What do you lose if you only took,
Well, sampling input.
decimate by a factor of 1,000 effectively?
You're only looking part of the time, so you could be missing things, especially if you're sampling at a rate which misses periodic signals. That would be the worst. But other than that, you would just be seeing only a fraction of what's coming in. So it would not perform. It would not look as good. But it would certainly use fewer cycles. But I think I have a better idea for at least for the high resolution stuff is to when you zoom in beyond a certain point, just create a regular receiver channel IQ output, start doing overlapping windowed FFTs on that. And that will give you as much resolution you want, well below 40 hertz. Right now, if you zoom in on your display, it just becomes, a very crude, low resolution display because I don't
Yes.
have bins any smaller than 40 hertz, but that can be fixed by this product. I can make that
Well,
I can make that
and something
transparent.
else, a better web designer, JavaScript programmer could do it on the front. You could do that in the web browser.
I'm not sure that's a good idea because, well, first of all, you don't want to send it to the user. It's an awful lot of data to send to the user. And second, I mean, it's probably going to be in JavaScript or something semi-interpreted like that. It's not going to be as efficient as in C. So,
Well, if you're sending the audio, you're already sending what you need to do it, right?
well, I mean, you're usually looking well beyond where the audio is, right?
Well, if you're zoomed way
I
in,
mean, you're usually, well, you're maybe zoomed in, but you're usually only modulating a piece of what you're looking at least when I mean, unless you're zoomed way into one channel.
well, say you're zoomed in to 1 hertz per bin, 40
Oh,
times
well,
more
all
than.
right, that's pretty extreme. All right, yeah, all right, well, yeah, sure, I can do it there.
Then you've got 1620 hertz.
Yeah.
On screen.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I
And then
mean,
my thought was,
I have the IQ baseband. I can certainly analyze that again.
I mean, I was just thinking, and I can't do it. It's beyond my abilities, but you would distribute the processing if you make the client do some of the FFT work
Problem
instead
is
of.
not the processing. It's not the CPU cycles. It's the sheer amount of data and the cost of moving it around, including between main memory and a cache, and between a cache and CPU registers. That's the cost.
But that's
Not
no
the
different than
operations.
what you're doing now to send the audio.
No, I'm sending a lot less audio than I am sending and I'm processing. I mean, there's many more bits per second go into this thing than come out.
What I'm saying is, if with the current system you zoom in all the way, you're at 40 hertz a bin. If you want to zoom past that, if you just said, forget the spectrum, I'll do it myself on the web browser, you could take the audio.
All right. If
And
you
you're
don't
at
care about anything outside the current channel passband, yeah, okay. If as long as it's PCM and not Opus.
Well, I haven't done that either, so.
Okay. Well, you see, I mean,
it's more likely that I'll get Opus
listen to
working
something.
than I'll do.
PCM is a waste. Anytime you're just going to listen to something, PCM is a complete waste because Opus can send it, can 15 to 1 compression. The only time to send PCM is when you need to run it through something other than your ears, right? So in that case, yeah, send you the PCM and process it however you like. But if you're just going to listen to it, which is the usual case with a web SDR that somebody's tuning interactively, then it would be a waste to send the full PCM just for you to do the Fourier transform. I think it'd be better for me to do it and then compress that output somehow, like reducing the quantization to 8 bits or whatever, Images and audio compress differently. I mean, the brain is sensitive to different kinds of impairments. So the algorithms for image and sound compression are very different.
You just said something interesting. Would it make sense would that reduce your Spectrum DMOD thread? You still got to touch all of it. Never mind. So say if you did reduce the output to 16 or 8 bit.
I have to touch all of it. So
yeah, doesn't help. Okay.
The only way I can stop that is if I were to run a bunch of low precision FFTs on the input stream and then just keep a set of energy bins fairly coarse that could be used when you're zoomed wide out. But that would mean it would be running all the time. It could be shared, but it would be running all the time, and it would cost probably half as much as the FFT I've got now, and it would be running all the time. Because like I said, I mean, the n log n over n rule means that I have, that a 1,000-point FFT is still half as much work as a 1,000,000-point FFT.
Well, the angle I was working was to decimate in the sample input so that you don't FFT all the data because you don't need them every 20 microseconds.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, right. Right. If you don't care about sampling cadence, so you can certainly do that. May be forced to do that.
I don't know what you lose when you do that, though. That's my question.
It doesn't update as fast. That's all. You're just averaging, assuming that let's say you're pseudo-randomly sampling, so the timing of your samples don't matter. Let's say it's pseudo-random,
Oh,
then
okay, clever. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, sure. I mean, pseudo-random. I mean, I come out of Qualcomm, right? Pseudo-random is the answer to everything. Whenever you're not sure about when to schedule something, make it random, and at least you won't be wrong all the time. That's a fundamental principle in communications and networking. Randomness is good. If you can't schedule, randomize. You could do better with scheduling if you knew when, but if you don't know when, then randomize, and at least you won't be wrong every time. Which is why I wish whisper transmitters would randomize each of their transmissions, or FT8 also. Anyway, that's an aside. Anyway, I have given this some thought about how if we really want to turn this thing to a better spectrum analyzer, I am thinking about this, and but it's not easy if you want to do a good job of it. And with that, I think I know you need to go eat something.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
For taking a look at all this, and hopefully, it doesn't seem to these events that we saw don't seem to be seriously impairing the performance of the system. It's still superior to a Kiwi, say, on the same
Yeah.
antenna and the same. So if there are these impairments introduced, they don't seem to be so serious as to,
Yeah, but it bothers me that I don't understand why they're there.
but yes, and I think, and if there's anything, I can do to help you study it, let me know. You're certainly welcome to do whatever you want on the Orange Pi.
Okay.
You can, I have a installation of your code that's inside, underneath the Whisper Daemon directory, but you're welcome to, we could turn that off and you could just, turn off Whisper Daemon if you want. I
Yeah,
don't
well, I've
mind.
been doing that. I mean, on the
Yeah.
KFS machines, I just do a pull and build in my own directory and
Yeah.
start it, and everything seems to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, I think we lost something in that because I think that for one of the KFSs stopped reporting to Grape reports. I don't know. I'm
Well,
in
I
that.
kept the same, what I thought was the same configuration.
I'm sure you did. I'm not questioning. I know that you would not have deliberately turned anything off. But there sure are a lot of decoders running on that on the
The
Omni
HFDL
machine.
decoders, yeah. Now you got to figure out data.
Well, anyway,
Actually, there are some
that's
places where you
great.
can report. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's great that it's all being, worked on, and I'm sure you know, you'll figure out something. Hopefully, it's got to be something that's dealable. I mean, we're stressing these systems by running them at these 129 rates,
Certainly
and
are.
and so I think we're kind of uncovering these kinds of performance boundaries that, we may not be, we
Yeah.
may not need to hit them, but it sure is nice to be running that, have every site running the same
And
way.
I test the limits, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Did anyone have a question for me? I, well, you can always email me. So,
See y'all.
okay. I think am I sharing? I think I'm there. Okay. Well, the hardcore people are still around. Okay. Well, I'm gonna hang up here. Take care. But there's a new message. What did I get here? Your top eight, capital H dash P. Just look at one PID. Yeah, I suppose. Okay.
Oh, that just shows you the threads for Radio D.
Yeah. Well, they pop up to the top, so usually just I don't even know what C stands for. I think uh the dash C is something, but I just follow, that's what Phil says to use. So
Does stress have options to specify what it stresses?
oh, perhaps, I don't know. To be honest, I
My
haven't.
thinking there is if you have stress the CPU and not the cache, that might help you narrow it down.
Uh, yeah, I think I think I've transferred that investigation over to back to Phil. So, uh, and I'm looking forward to it. And Scott, is this okay? Are you feeling okay about working on that PCM record change?
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
That's
great!
what you want.
Thank you so much. I really am so burnt out. It's really the last thing, and well, we're peeling the onion here. We looks like we may have an FFT thread problem, but that's uh, and then I'm pretty sure there's also a PCM record problem that you're addressing. The problem,
Now,
my use of the way I want it to work. So,
on the plus side, I did upload floating point grape DRF files, and the PSWS site plotted them today.
oh yeah, oh, and they're accepted and viewable.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And the
I've
one
been in.
yesterday,
And you
it
checked in
has.
that changed, right? So that's part of my Whisper Demon sites as I upgrade them.
I sent you a pull request. I ain't checking anything.
Yeah,
I think you merged it though.
I did merge it. Yeah, here's
Yeah, so I'm not running anything past what you know of.
okay. Well,
That
I
regex fix and the it was the socks telling it to output
yes,
on
yes, I saw.
downsample. But I also hooked up the ARB and stepped from what -72 to 0 dB every 20-minute increments for Bill. And
Oh,
that looked pretty good when I plotted it in dB instead of in
oh,
whatever it currently
oh,
plots in.
great. And yeah, he had linear stuff. So that well, the did we determine what the floating point value is for 0 dBm at the because basically the whole thing is we're with a single antenna. The values that the sample values that are in the database, the grape database, are traceable back to the E field that is impinging upon the antenna. It's a it's a it's a one-to-one. It's a constant characteristic through the whole thing. So. So that means that not only can you compare sites, in terms of their frequency, Doppler shift, but you can also look at the intensity, compare intensities, and know that you're pretty much looking at uh, the absolute signal level, not just the signal noise ratio, not just the frequency. And that was a big deal for us in the Whisper world, actually. We learned a lot when we started recording the background noise level um, along with the SNR. So I'm looking at I have to move this aside.
I have an old copy of Bill's great plotting code.
Yeah.
And so I hacked it to switch to dBm.
Ah, okay.
And you see there that
Oh,
it's
that's
lost the
great.
scaling.
That's
But those are 5 dB steps, and all I did
uh-huh.
was 20 logged in. So there's no calibration, there's no offset, there's no nothing.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
numbers all agreed between powers and metadump and the web and the output from
Wow.
socks and the output of grape. So it
Wow,
looks like, just as everyone expected, if you do floating point, you don't have to have any calibration.
yeah, that's great. Well, I have to one thing I think it works so reliably. 331 is working so reliably that I'm inclined to add to it that it switches the 888 and configures it for a float output so that we get the floats. I'm pleased that that Whisper now accepts streams, and that's I've leveraged the Phil's work on PCM Record. Whisper Daemon accepts float streams or int streams, and if they're int streams, it goes and adjusts the gain and compensates for it. But if it's float stream, it knows it doesn't need to do that. And so the whole, I think the whole chain is, I mean, I look for it, if you observe any anomalous levels in particular, uh, let me know because uh, there are on, I don't think I know I don't adjust the float sample files. I do, I don't think I touch them at all. So the int sample files, they do, let's see, they do get normal. Let's see, they're fixed that if it's an int, they're fixed at 60 dB of gain. And that means they could overload, you could get channel overload on them. So that's one of the things I wanted to get rid of, get away from by the channel overloads by having int files with fixed gain. So anyway, whatever you do, I'm very grateful for your help, Scott. It's the web thing is just awesome. It's just been great. It's really, I think, going to be a tremendous contribution in general, but in particular to this project. That as we start talking about deployments, I don't know if that interests you getting involved in supporting, these grape sites, but I think we're going to have to. We're going to have to hold their hands,
I
which I
don't
don't
know
think.
that there's anything I can offer there. I mean,
Yeah.
what
I
do you
don't
want
think.
to do?
Yeah.
Hook a
Yeah.
hook a tiny SA to a phone and having some app where you can control it remotely. I just don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I think that the problem with that is, it's only happens once. It's not there all the time. So, a month later, when the uh, the gophers chew through the cable, and you wonder why the signal levels have gone down. Um, so the remote access mechanism in your spectrum display just allow us to to gain complete insight into the system. And by the I think uh, can we record the spectrum? Is there a snapshot of the spectrum that can be saved away and dated so that we could take a look at it over time and say, oh, wait a second,
In the lower right-hand corner, there's a info dump or something like that button, and
Yeah.
it creates an Excel file with all the
Yeah.
bins and all
Okay.
the control metadump stuff.
Okay.
If you have averaging turned on, you get that. If you have max hold turned on, you also get the min and max. But I've got plans for Glenn's saving and loading, but I hadn't
Yeah.
worked on it yet.
Yeah.
I got JavaScript hard this week, and I just said,
Yeah.
no, I got to go do something else.
Yes,
I'd
I
rather
can.
debug Bash script sometimes than fight JavaScript.
Oh, well then, I've never had to deal with JavaScript, so I don't know. I'm too old to learn a new language. I can go back and remember C very well, but uh, Python and Perl, I've forgotten it. Lisp, I've forgotten everything I knew about them. So
I
okay,
want to like Python, but it is so frustrating to use.
yeah. Uh, well, a language that depends upon two space indents is hard on my old eyes. It gets. I don't understand a language that uses indentation as part of its syntax. It's just
And then it
does.
complains if you mix tabs and spaces.
Yeah, and I don't understand that motivation. You can run it through program and strip out your spaces and tabbing. But I never. Anyway, I haven't had. We've had a few subroutines. You've noticed that we dive into Python, and I didn't write those. I've written a few. I've written the awk scripts. I gotten a lot better at awk. And you may have noticed there are a couple of stages where awk is the right tool. I mean, you could do anything in any programming language, but well, almost practically. It's not true of signal processing. But anyway, you can do a lot of things in different languages. And Phil gives me a hard time about all this bash, but it's the right tool for 99% of the code lines. So. Okay, it must be really late for you. Thank you so much for your help, and let me know if you need anything, access to computers or anything.
Okay, understood.
Okay. Good night. Anyone else who's listening? I don't. Let's see. I'm leaving.